So today we have an interesting company participating in its culture for the first time. I like it because it's a company that makes a real, tangible, touchable product. So many companies that participate in culture and in general, companies around the world are sort of service companies or various consulting or maybe sales. But here we have a company that makes a real product, which is grind wheels essentially. And so that product is used in all kinds of industries. So it's a fascinating product. And also what's interesting, this company is right here in North Carolina, just within probably less than an hour from where I am, again, which makes me very happy. We have a total of 12 companies, each one from a different country. And this one is not only from the US, but it's literally right here. And so we have the company CEO and owner, Jonathan. I'm not sure how to pronounce your last name. Is it Shoes or?
It's Such.
Such. Okay, very nice. And so, yes, maybe let's start with a quick overview of what your company does, what the product is, maybe a few words on the history, and then I'm sure we'll have a lot of questions from the students.
Well, thank you. We're very excited to be a part of this X-Culture project. And just a quick history. My name is Jonathan Such. I'm the sole owner, no co-owner. I'm the sole owner of Advanced Superabrasives. It was started in 1993 by my father, but I purchased the company in 2017. And, primarily we started as a woodworking company. We're making grinding wheels mostly for the woodworking industry. So I actually brought a grinding wheel for the woodworking industry here because this is what started ASI, was actually making wheels for the woodworking industry. And, it is man-made diamond we put on here. You can see that there.
So that in there, that's a diamond.
Yes. That's the diamond
rim.
And
so
there.
When you say woodworking, so it doesn't grind wood, it grinds probably the tools that grind wood, right? Is that how?
Yes, this actually grinds the saw blades that actually cut all the wood. This actual wheel actually cuts if you look at a saw blade, sometimes the tooth has two angles and a flat. This is actually what this wheel grinds, is the two angles and the flat. So I brought that. So, we were started in 93 in North Carolina, mostly for the woodworking industry, because that's what North Carolina is very famous for, the furniture industry and everything of that nature. But in 08, 09, when we had the housing crisis, we decided to branch out and get into more markets. So now ASI makes wheels for aerospace, automotive, industrial ceramics, energy, whether it's renewable, oil and gas, nuclear, medical, food industry, printing industry, semiconductor industry. I mean, you name it. If it's high precision, we have to make a grinding wheel to grind it. And so we are more now geared towards those other industries and less towards woodworking. Not that we neglect our woodworking friends, but we start making wheels, let's say like this. This is actually for grinding diamond tools. So it's a diamond grinding wheel for grinding diamond tools. These diamond tools are used by Molly, who makes pistons for cars. And so, they use these tools to actually machine the steel parts for that. So our wheels.
It's not only for sharpening, cutting tools, it's for any metal machining, essentially, precision.
Anything precise. So we make grinding wheels for grinding steels, but titanium, nitinol, all kinds of hardened materials, anything that's, let's say, a 45 Rockwell or harder material that needs to be high precision, we make grinding wheels to grind. Now, those are what we call a CBN or cubic boron nitride wheels, which is different than a diamond grinding wheel, but we make both. And then we make a resin bonded, which is what I have here, which is pressed at a lower temperature. And then we make a metal bonded, which is actually pressed up to temperatures of 2,500 degrees Fahrenheit, where we're actually melting tin and silver and other metals to actually hold the diamond onto the core. What you saw here with this wheel, we're just using a powdered resin that then liquefies at about 180 degrees Fahrenheit and then resolidifies as we get to higher temperature with pressure. And that helps hold the man-made diamond on here. And then we add different additives to it.
So I assume the diamond on that wheel, it's not like a round piece of diamond. It's like some sort of like diamond powder or crystals that are there.
Yes, it's all diamond powder. So the easiest way I can explain it to everybody is diamond grinding wheels are kind of like sandpaper. We have different grits. So we have, this one happens to be probably about a 220 grit that I'm holding in my hand. We make as coarse as a 30-40 grit, 30 grit, that's huge boulders. And we make as fine as, I think it's about a 4,000 to 6,000 grit. And that's more for the semiconductor industry. So we make grinding wheels that grind the actual silicon wafers before they actually put the electronics on to that. So before anything's done, those silicon wafers actually have to be ground perfect to a mirror. And we make a 6,000 grit wheel that actually does that. But it's all man-made powdered diamond, all in carats. And then we weigh it out in grams before we actually apply it to the wheels.
I'm just curious. I know this question probably sounds silly from the technical point of view, but how much diamonds do you have at your factory at any time? Like, would it be like a bag full of diamond dust, or like what volume do you have?
So they come in jars. They come in jars, and normally the smallest amount that we order is about 2,500 to 5,000 carats of man-made diamond. The largest jars that we get in are probably, 30, 40, 50,000 carats of diamond. So,
How much in
probably,
pounds or kilograms?
yeah. So right now, in the lab, you're probably talking about, we normally have anywhere from 1 to 2 million carats of diamond at any one time.
That's how
All
much, like a
man-made.
bucket of diamonds, or more?
No, it's way more than that. It's if you take the largest gun safes that are out on the market, you could fill two of those with all
Ooh,
the diamond we have in there.
that's so you probably have like serious security at your facility. I mean, I imagine.
We do, and actually the diamonds are actually kept in safes overnight. So during the day the safes are open, but every night they get locked, and on the next morning they're reopened. But because it's man-made diamond and we put coatings on them of nickel, copper, silver, and we change the friability, how much the diamond crystal breaks. Unless you're selling it to another diamond wheel company, it's useless to the open market. You're not going to go and make jewelry out of it
So it's
or
not
anything
something
like
that you
that.
can turn into a ring stone.
No, it's not pretty. It's not very pretty because it's more for industrial use. But it definitely is a big part of our business. So we protect it, and then we add our glue and our powders to it. But we're very active in all these different industries. For aerospace, we're not grinding the Boeing 787. We're grinding the tools that drill or mill into the 787. So, if you're talking about the old planes or the aluminum planes, they used to hold them together with rivets.
Mhm,
With carbon fiber, they use fasteners. Okay.
mhm,
So
mhm.
it's actually bolts basically. And, we have to create wheels that grind the drills that have to drill those holes into that carbon fiber. And the complex part about it is those tools have to be very sharp, because if you pull one fiber out of that carbon fiber, the whole section is scrapped because you've
Mhm.
lost the complete integrity of it. So, like I said, we provide a lot of grinding wheels for Boeing and Airbus for their airplane production, a lot to the automotive industry, again, for tools that are drilling holes or milling pockets, or in their engine factories, or making, different things there. So, the wheels are used all over the place for medical. If you've had a COVID vaccine shot and the needle went in your arm and it didn't hurt, you're welcome. We make electrochemical grinding wheels that actually ground those needle tips.
The
If it
needle
did
tip
hurt, it was
actually
my
shot
competitor's
me.
wheel.
I didn't even realize that that's how it's made. I thought it somehow just cut to that size, but
No,
it
it is not cut. They have to be ground. Those have to be ground in a
like that
small
tiny, like, but it
double.
looks like it like a hair, like it's like so delicate.
Absolutely. As a matter of fact, our wheels grind tools that are smaller than your hair.
Hmm.
Okay. That are actually used, let's say, for circuit boards or for other micro drilling or micro milling. We actually have a grinding wheel that we sell a lot of to the dental industry, that they grind these nitinol metal tools that actually go in for root canals. And it's fully flexible. You can bend this tool. It's about an inch and a half long, let's say, and you can bend this thing all the way back into a circle, and it goes right back to its original shape. But it's actually the part they go in and actually grab the root out for the root canal
Yeah, I
tool.
remember it looks like a twisted needle kind of thing. Yeah,
Exactly.
so I
And
remember.
that twist is all made with our wheel. So if any of you look at a drill, if you look at the back of the drill that you put into or the drill bit that you put
uh,
into the drill, you see how round it is and solid. That's how that started. And all that shaping that you see of the drill, that's not twisted, that's ground out with our wheels.
Interesting. That's fascinating. I mean, I never even thought about that, to be honest. I mean, it's not that I didn't know; it just never even occurred to me. So, okay. So, how big is your company at this time? How many people work for you?
So we're around 40 employees. We
Mhm.
sell to 28 countries around the world. We have some distributors and reps internationally, like in Mexico and in Canada. We're looking for reps and distributors, obviously, for a lot of the rest of the world, and even in some of the countries where we have distributors and reps. But we do all the manufacturing here in North Carolina, and we ship it worldwide. like I said, to 28 countries. So that could be anywhere from Malaysia, Singapore, Taiwan, Thailand, China, all over Europe, South America, is mostly to Brazil, Central America, Costa Rica. So, a lot of different places we sell our products to because we cover all these industries. And the difference between us and our competitors is that I don't just sell you a wheel. We actually support it. So we help people with grinding feeds and speeds, how to use the wheel, the materials they're grinding. So a lot of times we're sought after for a lot more complicated projects. Your run-of-the-mill everyday stuff, that's probably not something that we compete with. But like we're grinding a lot of stainless steel blades right now in Mexico. We're working with a company. We make all these wheels for them, and they're making the blades for cutting bread. I mean, who would have thought that for bread or meat? But we make a lot of wheels, and they had a new material they
cut
wanted.
it, so I guess, yes.
Yeah, we're all hungry. We want to eat during COVID, okay? So we definitely want to make sure we have our bread and our meats.
So a few more specific questions about your production process. So you said it's 40 people, so it's a sizable team. How is your production structured in terms of the capital versus labor intensity? So is it like, is most of your operating expenses are in labor, or is it more that the machinery and other things that require capital?
So
Did those people actually do the work, or they just press the button and the machines do everything for them?
So when I bought the company in 2017, we were probably about an 80-20 labor intensity to capital. Since then, I've invested.
So 80-20, so 80 labor, 20 capital. Okay.
Exactly. And I invested quite a bit of money, several hundreds of thousands of dollars in new equipment and working with universities to streamline our manufacturing process, take, basically that labor and drop it. So I would say today we're at about 60-40, 60 being labor, 40 being capital. And, we don't want to lose the skill sets of our individuals. So we have apprenticeship programs and we work with people. So we're still teaching skills. But to get our wheels more consistent, for the quality to raise up, we've actually had to invest quite a bit in capital machinery, CNC machines for grinding. Never in my history have I ever seen a diamond wheel company, especially our size, buy CNC rotary surface grinders to actually make the wheels flatter. But now our tolerances on flatness are, in microns, not in thousandths of an inch. So, these are things that we've been able to improve, also been able to improve productivity and throughput. So I could tell you, as of last week, our production capacity, we're running, even though we're still full-time and everything, we're running at about 40% of full production capacity.
So
when I bought the company,
you could literally more than double the production if needed.
Exactly. And when I bought the company in 2017, we were working in the 90 to 95% because we were so labor intensive. But because we streamlined the process, we added new capital equipment, we were able
so it's not fewer
down.
orders, it's your capacity increased.
Exactly. As a matter of fact, our revenues and orders have increased since 2017.
Can I ask you a few more questions? So how long does it take to train an employee for your company? Is it something that requires some special education, or is it more like a few months on the job training and it's enough? Like, how complicated is the work itself?
It depends on what job they're doing. If you're talking about, let's say, a CNC machinist or something, you're probably talking about, they can come out of school and hop on our machines with a certificate or a 2-year degree. If we're talking about grinding or hot pressing or other places where there's more skill involved, it takes a little bit longer. So I would say in grinding, you're 6 months to 9 months. Hot pressing, you're looking at about a year. For me to train an engineer properly with an engineering degree in our industry, because they only teach this industry in Germany at one university, you're looking at about a year of training with a 4-year degree engineer.
So even someone who already has the degree still requires a lot of additional specialized training.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I do training with every staff member here in the beginning as if they were in engineering. I have an assistant that is new, and I've been working with her through the same engineering handbook of going through the different diamond types and the wheel shapes and styles and everything. And so, her training, although most of her job is not going to be in making diamond wheels or anything, that part of her training is quick in just a couple weeks. The diamond wheel training and understanding this takes a little bit longer. So I would say even our office personnel, you're looking at about 1 to 3 months, probably.
Now, a few more questions about the supply chain. So what components do you need to buy to make the grinding wheels? And then what exactly do you do in-house? Like what part of production is done in-house? Like what are the components and what are the processes that go into making the final product?
Yeah, so it's quite simple for our products. Most of our supply costs are obviously in the core material. This is 6061 aircraft grade aluminum, but we do have a Bakelite plastic, a powdered aluminum, and then we use 4150 preheat treated steel for our steel. And those are our core bodies. And then we adhere the diamond to those. And so we have the man-made diamond, we have the resin glue, we have powders that will add to, let's say, the diamond to actually help with heat transfer. And that could be powders such as aluminum oxide, silicon carbide, could be powdered copper, could be tin, could be silver, could be nickel that we add for actual heat transfer and actually harden up the bonds a little bit. So those raw materials we all purchase.
Is it sourced locally or comes from overseas or?
Both. So some of our powders come from as far away as England. A lot of our powders, our coppers and stuff like that is actually sourced locally. And the aluminum is sourced locally, but where it actually comes from, I have seen recently that some of our aluminum is coming from Eastern Europe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And some of the steel as well. But we're getting those raw materials either in bars or pre-cut blanks, and then we machine it to the shape, all in-house. And then we buy the diamonds pre-coated with different coatings that we want on them, and then we buy the powders raw and everything, and we mix those all in-house. But the molds that we use to make these, we actually make completely in-house. We buy all the steel and machine everything in-house. So yeah, all the raw materials we purchase, and then we actually make everything from scratch here from that. We just combine the raw materials, machine it, press it, whatever we need to do to make the final product.
How about the energy consumption? Do you depend a lot on electricity or is it relatively minor?
No, there's a lot of electricity. In our current building, it's not set up to be energy efficient. In the next 3 to 5 years, we'll have a new building and that will be more set up for energy efficiency. So when we press these wheels in the resin bond, we're pressing them at about 350 degrees Fahrenheit for 40 minutes. And you have 4 heated platens. And they're all electric.
Or natural gas or electric?
No, they're all electric.
Electric.
They're all electric. Now in the new building, they will be natural gas. Mm-hmm. We have 2 ovens that are also electric that have to run at 350 degrees. Our press that runs up to 2,500 is it's an electric coil press. So that takes about 200 amps at 480 if we crank it up, all the way. That's why all of our offices have LED lights and the shop has LED lights, because that's where energy savings is. And then all the equipment we have on the floor, from the lathes to the grinders, the laser engravers, everything, that's all electric. So, we're hoping with the new facility that where we're using heat, we can move to natural gas, and that we can find some more energy efficient equipment so that we can help lower our electric bill a little bit. But right now it's basically electricity. And the only thing the natural gas is being used for right now is the wintertime when we're actually needing heat.
Yeah. So making the product is only half of the job. Distribution, sales, that's a big component. So you mentioned that you already sell to 28 countries. Can you educate us more about how it's done? Is it you just running from one country to another, trying to get those contracts? Why those 28 and not some other countries? So how does your international presence sort of works out, and who manages it?
So really, in all honesty, in the past, ASI has been notorious for all of us doing our own sales, meaning I'm running to 20 countries or 15 countries around the world. Somebody else is running to 10, 15 countries, and we're breaking it up. We have a more focused approach now where we're looking for reps and distributors, partners in country, because I love traveling, but in a COVID world, we can't always travel outside of the country. So if you have a local rep that can drive, from one city to the next and can visit customers, it's better if you have that. So, in the past, the reason for those 28 countries is that's what ASI decided on. For the future, and ever since I took the company over, it's been more focused on what industries and countries benefit ASI and which are the ones that we want to go after. And instead of just saying we're going to go after these 28 countries, it's we want to go after this market in this country because of this. or
Yeah.
this market, and we want to find distributors and reps that can help us. So it's a more planned and focused method, where in the past, the reason why we sold to those 28 countries is because we basically said, oh, there's somebody in Singapore that's going to use our wheels. Let's try to sell there, or Costa Rica, or Malaysia, or let's say we're working with a machine manufacturer. Just to give you all a heads up, this wheel goes on a German machine, and the machine manufacturer sells all over the world. So they may say,
Yeah,
hey,
yeah.
you can use these guys in the US, they're really good. So that's why 28 countries, as opposed to more traditional methods of us having a plan and focused, which is where we're at right now. Plan and focus, we want to attack these markets.
So yeah, questions are coming in. So a few more fine issues. When it comes to geography, are there any sort of limits on where you could sell, either because you don't want to sell somewhere, or because of, I don't know, inches, centimeters, or any other reasons, or it might work anywhere on the planet as long as they're willing to buy?
No, it works anywhere on the planet. It even works off the planet. For those of you that don't know, we actually have a grinding wheel on Mars. So we
Really?
joke about that. Yeah, on the Curiosity rover.
Wow.
So we joke about
That's
that.
cool.
Yeah, inch and metric doesn't matter to us when you're grinding on other planets. So that's pretty neat. Just to give you an idea, this wheel is completely made in metric. It's 125 millimeter, not 5-inch. It's 20 millimeters thick with a 32 millimeter hole in the center there. It's 5 millimeters by 6 millimeters is the diamond section. So inch and metric doesn't matter to us. Geographic location doesn't matter to us. Sometimes it's a little harder to find a carrier. Yes, and FedEx is great in the States and North America. But when you're going to Europe, DHL seems to be preferred. Sometimes in Asia, they have their own carriers in country because not everybody goes there. But geographically, unless somebody's trying to grind something in the jungle of Brazil, it's pretty easy for us to get our products there.
Yeah. Now, in terms of the target consumer or decision maker, so who are the people that you sell to? Is it the end consumer? Is it like the German company that makes the machines that use your wheels? So basically, who are the people that you're trying to advertise your product to?
Normally, it's the end user. So the people that are actually making the tooling. It's not that the machine manufacturers don't want to buy the wheels. It's the machine manufacturers don't understand how to use the wheels. They know how to make a machine, but they don't know how to use this on the machine. So what we actually try to do is, if we're working, let's say, with somebody making tools for Airbus, we want to work with that company making the tools for Airbus. So although we work with Airbus and Boeing, I do most of my business with their suppliers that are actually making the tools, the people that are actually making the drills and the end mills, not the machine manufacturers and not the the users of the tools as much as the companies that are making the tools for them. So if you're
So who is the guy that you would talk to? So it's not the guy who actually works at the machine. So it must be some sort of like a procurement department manager.
You either start with a production manager or a purchasing manager. And then normally they do have you talk to, actually, let's say, their lead grinder, because their lead grinder helps select the wheels, because they're the ones that are in charge of actually making sure they make production goals. So, we always start with either the production manager or the purchasing manager. And then normally they put us in contact with the person on the machine, because all too often the production manager and the purchasing manager, they do not have answers to the questions that we would ask. Let's say we would ask, how fast are you running the wheel? How many tools are you trying to get out of a wheel? You're asking specific questions. We have a customer questionnaire that has, let's say 10, 15 questions that we ask the customer, whether it's the purchasing or the production manager, to answer. And a lot of times that gets funneled down to the person actually running the machine.
So, Jonathan, a few more very specific questions. So, and then I'll tell you where I'm leading with that. But first, so how are these products then sold? Like, it's not something that you would buy at a store, right? So it's not something that you just walk into a Home Depot and you buy, right? It's all direct sales to the actual people who then use it in some way, right?
Correct. And I mean, we do
like
have
no
distributors
or retailers. It goes directly to the company. Is that how it works? Or
well, we don't have retailers, so you can't go to Home Depot or Lowe's or if
not even a specialized retailer that does it. So it's
sometimes you can get into specialized retailers, but in all honesty, it's really the specialized distributors that will hold products or sell products. Or if it's not that way, then it's direct. Because I'll be honest with you, 95% of our wheels are custom made to the customer, whatever
so
they're
not
needing.
like a standard,
No, I
So,
mean, this is a standard wheel for the woodworking industry, and it will work in 99.9% applications that we're going to put it in. But most people want something different. They change the carbide they're grinding, they change the pitch of the tooth, they change what they want out of the wheel. So then that's where the customization comes in, where we can either change the diamond or the hardness or what, a million different things we can change to make what the customer wants. So even though we have a catalog with, what I would call standardized products for us, most customers say that's a great start. And if
interesting.
we need this in a pinch, it'll get us to go by.
Mhm.
But we want something that's made for us that's going to do exactly what we want.
Now, very important question then. So, and that's where I was going with those few leading questions. So our students, both, you did ask them in the challenge instructions there, but also many students do it on their own initiative. They want to impress you with how well they can basically work for you, so to speak. And so there will be many students, I don't know how many will choose your company as a client, but there will be probably hundreds of students working on your challenge. And many of them will try to get you a contract. And so the question they will run into is, who do we talk to bring you some sort of a letter of intent or contract? So if you were to give them the instructions, imagine that you have, let's say, 100 agents around the world. They don't have much experience. I mean, it's a very peculiar, special industry, but they are willing to spend a few hours and talk to the local companies, people, and see if they can basically get you a contract. So how would they identify those people? What should they be looking for, let's say, in the yellow pages to find the potential customers? Or what would be the instructions for them to get that contract? Who do they go to?
So normally what I do is I instruct our sales team to look digitally. If you're looking at LinkedIn or other social media sites, and what you're looking for is you're looking for quality managers, you're looking for purchasing managers, you're looking for production managers in the job titles.
Mhm.
And you're reaching out to them and seeing, hey, I have this diamond wheel company. I see you guys use diamond wheels. Sometimes companies even have people will put on their profiles that they're a lead grinder or a wheel procurement specialist or something like that. And so you can reach out to those people and say, hey, I have a company that's wanting to, you to try their product or
Mhm.
interested in working with you. And then they'll get back to you with, what they grind, what information. And then for us internally, there's myself, and then there's several other of us that are very talented in working with international customers. So it's not like I'm the only one that answers all the international questions. I have a whole team behind me that handles different parts of the world. So, anything that that you would bring to us, we would be able to disseminate between us and get answers fairly quickly. One thing that we pride ourselves on is customer service
Mhm.
and being responsive. So our normal response time is within 24 hours. And our normal production time, and this is something that's a very big plus for us. Our competitors, if you're talking European, they're running about 12 to 16 weeks in production. We're producing 98% of our wheels in 2 to 3 weeks.
That's good to know. And yes, it's likely that we will be, or students will be coming back to you maybe for some sort of a promo materials that they can print as they are trying to, talk to potential buyers. And I assume the advice would be, so once there is any sign of interest, they probably want to connect you at that time to that, into those talks, right? It's a very
Correct.
specialized product, so the students probably wouldn't have all the information. So for the students, I highly recommend that you try it. So one, it's a good experience for you. So once you have your own business, that's, much of your work will be, trying to make a sale. But if it does work, it can lead to all kinds of wonderful things. First, if you have on your resume a line that says that you facilitated an international transaction contract, you will be so much more attractive to a potential employer. I mean, if you can say that you already sort of made a deal internationally, that's a big selling point. Anybody would be willing to hire you. But second, if it works well for you, and that's my next question for Jonathan, so would you be open to the idea? Like, let's say we have a student somewhere in Australia or I don't know, Germany or Japan or Ukraine, who brings you a couple of contracts. Would you be willing to consider maybe some sort of setting up some sort of a, I don't know, sales agreement office? I don't know how it works, agency, and maybe saying to that student, hey, why don't you get more? I'll pay you a commission or whichever the standard. Would you be open to that kind of collaboration or?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. We would love to do that. We always look for opportunities where we can bring on commission-based sales people, whether it's, reps or whatever. And not only would we be willing to do that, but I'll go one step further to say, if we were to come up to some kind of agreement with that, if let's say you have somebody in Australia, because you brought that up, and there's a trade show, we would even be willing to help share trade show costs
Yeah.
with that person.
Actually, that's a very good thing. And I'm kind of glad that you brought up Australia. We had a case when there was a company from Florida that sells cow pregnancy tests. I didn't even know that there is this, but yeah, if you're a rancher, I guess you need to know if your cow is pregnant. And so apparently they're very popular in the United States, but not much elsewhere. And so we had a student who literally went to some sort of like a farmer's convention or fair trade show, and so brought some materials. And then now the company is selling the products in Australia because the student essentially disseminated the product. So maybe something like that would happen with you guys, like my native Ukraine, very big timber industry, but also a lot of industry. So I assume they have a lot of cutting tools there. I'm not sure if you sell in Ukraine, but if anyone's listening, I know there would be a huge market for a product like this, but just about any other country. I mean, we have like a lot of students from Brazil, lots of students from Africa, again, a lot of mining, a lot of, timber. Yeah, try it. So it's everybody can, well, not everybody, but, t-shirts, coffee, that's a common product. And that's where markups are, tiny. Here, I think that's where you have some real business opportunities. We have a few more student questions, but then I need to go down my list. So there is one question about going back to the energy. So one student is asking, are you using solar panels, or why not solar panels? So is solar.
So we'll be using solar panels with the new building, but the reason we can't with our current building, our roof won't support it, number one.
Mm-hmm.
And number two, we're on electrical co-op, which is different than, let's say, Con Ed or Duke or any of the other power companies. So because we're in a rural area on electrical co-op, the only thing I could use my solar panels for is to sell electricity back to the main. Now with the new building, we will have the right electrical equipment to where we could actually use that. But our current co-op situation, our current building, we're not able to do that.
Mm-hmm. There is also an interesting question from Jagisha about how long the wheel lasts. Is it like a one-time purchase and forget, or is it something that needs a constant supply of the tools?
No, they need a constant supply. So, if you were to ask me, how long does this wheel last? The way they count it in the saw industry is by tips. But again, it depended on the tip size. If you're doing smaller tips, it's going to do a lot more tips. If you're doing a lot larger tips for maybe cutting aluminum or steel, then it's going to, obviously wear out quicker. What I like to tell people is, on average, you're probably looking at a 1 to 3 month life cycle, depending on how much material they're taking and how much they use the wheel. I have had wheels that have been working at customers for years, and I have some customers that go through wheels in 3 weeks. But, it's really dependent on how much material they're grinding and what they're grinding.
Does the product require much service, but not in the sense of customer service, but more like servicing? Like, do they need to be, I don't know, repaired, or is it usually just buy until use it until it breaks and then buy a new one?
Normally what they do is they use it till it's gone, and then they purchase a new one. So it's a disposable tool. But in certain industries, in certain cases, aerospace, automotive, they will put forms into wheels. And after so many tools, that form will start going away. And then what they'll do is they'll regrind that form onto the diamond wheel, and then they'll run another run of tools through it.
Interesting. A few more questions about your competition. So again, it's I assume it's not like t-shirts, thousands of manufacturers make t-shirts. I assume it's a fairly small number of competitors, but still, who are your competitors? Where are they? Is it regionalized? So how do you position yourself within the larger industry?
Yeah, so in the US, we're probably the largest privately held, or second largest privately held diamond wheel manufacturer. All our competitors are publicly owned. So you're talking about 3M is the world's largest, but they're not historically been in the diamond wheel company. They just purchased enough companies to make them the largest. Saint-Gobain out of France, they're another one. And then a Tiralit out of Austria. Those are our 3 largest competitors worldwide. And I run into all 3 all over the world.
And they, all of you sell essentially globally, right? So it's not very regionalized in that respect in terms of the distribution.
No. But normally how those companies get into those markets, I'll give you an example. Tiralit just got off a call with the Czech Republic because we're selling a couple wheels, not much. I want to grow that. But in the Czech Republic, we have one customer there. And I said, how is Tiralit in that market? And they said, they bought a company here. And that's how they get into a lot of these markets. They're not going in and building a company. They're buying a company that was already there and then just moving their production, so to speak, and their knowledge into those buildings. But that's how we position ourselves, is that We do more high technology type wheels. We service our wheels, meaning we actually work with the customers on how to use them. And that's something that the larger companies do not do. Now, when you get to Europe, there's quite a bit of probably smaller companies in Germany or in Italy, but those are more regionalized. They're the ones like, if you go to Italy, I know one company there, they go, oh, we just make for Ferrari. That's all we do is make grinding wheels for Ferrari. But they don't leave Italy.
Interesting.
So
yeah. Now, so since we're running out of time, I wanted to briefly go through the list of the questions that we put on the challenge, and then we wanted to clarify a few just to make sure that students know what needs to be done as discussed. So the students will be spending anywhere between 5 to 10 hours a week. Some will spend more, some less, but there will be a combined of definitely in thousands and possibly even in tens of thousands of hours put into it. And so we want to make sure that they have the proper directions so that all those hours give you the best outcome. So here, first section, we want the students to do some analysis of the potential new markets and then recommend the ones where they see essentially the need but no competition. And so the question is clear, but one thing I wanted to clarify, do you think it would be a good idea for the students to conduct their own sort of market research by talking to potential people who use grinding wheels and ask them, where do you buy your grinding wheels? How much do you pay? Have you ever heard anything about ACI? Would you be willing to buy their grinding wheels? Why or why not? How much are you willing to pay? How do you make those decisions? So would such a sort of survey, maybe talking to 1, 2, 3 potential, I don't know how many students can find, but would that kind of survey, do you think, be useful for them to better understand the industry?
absolutely. Absolutely.
Is it something they can find online? It almost seems to me like you need to find a couple of guys who sharpen the saws or something like that and then talk to them to truly understand it. Or you think it's possible to find out something online like open sources?
I think they're probably going to have to talk to the people that are making the tooling because I don't know how much open source data that they're going to be able to find.
I actually personally have, in fact, maybe I'll even call him just out of curiosity. So a very close friend of mine from Canada. So we met in a strange way when I had a baby as a student with my wife. The guy, I don't know how he heard about us through some church, but he was buying diapers for our first child as long as he needed. And so it's been like now 17 years, but we still stay in touch, visit each other. And so his job is he sharpens the saws in Canada, in Alberta. So they have a big timber industry, and that's his job. And I'm actually now curious, so I would like to call Geoffrey and specifically ask him where he buys his tools. Is it something he buys centrally in Canada? Does it procure them directly from the manufacturers? Because that's what he's been doing like all his life. It's a basically one-man company, but that's what he does. And he's been doing it for like 40 years, probably at least now. So if you know anyone like that, guys, or if there is just about any factory in your city, I assume they would be, sharpening things or cutting things. So you might want to talk to them and talk about it. So then once the market analysis is identified, new market is identified, we ask the students to conduct analysis. Who else is present in the market, competition, strengths, weaknesses, pricing. So basically, do your own research, but also present that in the report. So we want to know, and then take into account maybe cultural or legal or political factors that might affect, basically might play a role when the company sells the product there. And so one question that comes to my mind in that respect, trade regulations, is it something that, affects you much? Like, is there some certification required? Do you often have to pay, I don't know, some sort of tariffs on the imports? Is it a big hassle for you? Just curious for myself.
It's not too much of a big hassle as long as it's mostly for the tooling. When you start getting into the nuclear energy or anything that could be made for war, that's when we
purposes they call it, right?
Yeah, that's when it gets a little tricky. But for most of our products, it's not an issue. If you're making saw blades, normally it's not an issue. If you're making drills or end mills, it's not an issue. But if you have somebody that says, I need grinding wheels for grinding nuclear fuel rods, then we have to start looking at that because we do make grinding wheels for grinding nuclear fuel rods. So, and that could be used for energy. It could be used for medical, or it could also be used for, war. So, when we get into those situations, we have to be very careful. But for most of the tooling and stuff that our wheels are used for, like industrial ceramics, medical, normally we don't have an issue with that.
It actually occurred to me since we mentioned Ukraine. So Ukraine is one of the world's largest manufacturers of weapons, anything from Kalashnikovs to tanks and aircrafts. And I imagine there is a lot of grinding going into that kind of industry. And so I'm not sure how it's regulated, but yes, do your research, students. Then obviously marketing. So again, historically, some of the best ideas come from promotion channels. Again, we've had, I don't know how it works with the grinding wheels, but we've had situations when the product was such that is, for example, sold to schools, like, plagiarism detection software. Or sometimes the product is sold, like, for example, again, when we talk about toys, retailers. And so our students were able to identify relatively cheap or even free ways to reach the actual customers. Like, for example, some countries literally have mailing lists or magazines for like school principals or deans of business schools. Very narrow, very focused, but those are the decision makers for those kinds of products. And so maybe do some research in your country, see if there is some sort of like a magazine or maybe an exhibition, annual fair, trade fair, or maybe mailing list, or maybe Facebook group for people, I don't know, maybe like machinists or tool sellers or something like that. And so if you can find those specific channels, I think there will be a lot of value there, because it's not a product that you would advertise on TV, for example, right? Or like broadcast. So it has to be very sharp, very narrow. Social media probably not the best way to advertise it unless you go maybe like through LinkedIn by profession. So if you can identify promotion channels that are relatively cheap and focused and kind of cater specifically to the people who make decisions on this product, so that would be of a lot of value. And maybe there is something very specialized in your country. Likewise, what should be the message? I guess here you probably will stick with the company's current message. But if you have some interesting ideas for how to present it in a way that would attract attention, obviously, you put that information here. And then promotion materials, again, I'm not sure how much creativity, how creative you need to get in terms of designing potential messages, maybe, the text of the message that goes through the mailing list or goes into a group. But if you can come up with some interesting ideas, maybe the concept for the ad or the concept for some sort of a leaflet or booklet, do share them here. So anything that you can think of for marketing. Do you have a big marketing budget at this time? Do you spend much on marketing, or is it primarily like face-to-face type of advertisement?
We spend quite a bit. Just so that you all know, we have, for Mexico and Canada, we have websites other than our .com US website. So in Mexico, it's .mx and .ca for Canada. And we'll be building 2 more websites for international markets this year. Haven't picked which ones they're going to be yet, but we'll be building probably 2 websites a year for international markets. So, we also run social media through that.
Why not just .com? Like Canada, they use English as well. So why do you need to have a separate local site?
Because it actually, I'll be honest with you, when we tried just .com in the US and focusing on our Canadian customers and distributors, we were getting about 100 visits a month to the website. Ever since we got the .ca, we have about 1,800 visits a month.
Fascinating. Now. This is very interesting. I spent about 7 years in Canada, and I know that many American companies try to disguise themselves as Canadian companies. Like even McDonald's has a Canadian leaf on that M. And so they always say Canadian owned because it's a franchisee owned. So apparently some countries are very, I guess, patriotic, or I'm not sure what you call it, but they want local. So, and I never thought that it would play out like that in your industry. So this is an interesting tip for you students, no matter what challenge you work on. I mean, a copy of the website with the local domain, I guess it's not really that expensive, but if it makes such a big difference, something to, never thought about that actually. That's interesting. Yeah. And then, so entry mode, logistics, shipping. So it's more kind of general research, but yes, like entry mode. So would it be direct experts? Should there be some sort of a local partner, distributor, or maybe even a governmental agency? Again, in many of these countries, I hear that in many countries in Africa, for a long time, many industries in Ukraine were basically government owned, and all procurement was going through governmental agencies. So you wouldn't be able to sell directly to the company. So do your research. So maybe there is a need for some sort of a partnership, a joint venture, a strategic alliance, or maybe some special agreement with a governmental agency. So if that's the case, do include that in the report. Sometimes, and this is sort of borderline, I'm not even sure if it's ethical, but we had situations where literally a student, I will not name the country, but we had a situation where the student says, if you want to do business in my country, nobody is going to be selling here without the permission of this man who heads the governmental agency that oversees the industry. Incidentally, that man happens to be my cousin. Here is his name, here is his phone number. call him, tell that Alex sent you. And so I don't know, I mean, like, it seems like it's ethical, legal, no bribes involved. He just happens to know the right person. But yes, maybe it's something like that in your country. And if the case, yeah, do include those contacts and provide the names. Obviously we want to be within the legal and ethical boundaries, but yes, so any leads, any contacts, any specifics would be much appreciated here. Likewise, on the logistics, maybe do some research on import tariffs, maybe regulations. Some countries can have very strange restrictions. So if that's the case, do include them, including not only that they exist, but maybe also what it takes to fulfill those requirements. How many days, weeks it takes to go through the custom clearance, what are the costs, what are the right forms to fill out. So all of that would be much appreciated, and very useful. And then obviously, if you would like to maybe try to get a deal, you're most welcome and highly encouraged to see if you can talk to the local users of tools like this and see if they would be interested in buying the tools. At the very least, collect the information about how they make those purchasing decisions, whom they use as their suppliers at this time, how they make those selections. So that all will inform you about the product. But yeah, if you succeed, I guess it will not only impress the client, but also it's something that can impress your future employers. Anything else that we need to add in terms of the tasks and questions? Anything else that students should focus on to deliver more value to your company, Jonathan?
No, I think it's going to be a huge learning experience for them. I really, really do. So I don't have anything to add.
Yeah. There is one more question just to close it off from Jigish. Are there ways that the old grinding wheels can be reused or diamonds can be made in some way recycled? Like, do you buy them back in some way, or it's
we don't buy them back? They're not really recycled, but what we do recycle where we can is the core material. So what the diamond is applied to. So right now we recycle about 40 18-inch rings a week, where we apply new diamond sections to them, and then it goes out to the customer. They grind, until the diamond section is basically gone. They send us the rings back, and we reapply a new diamond section and send it back to them. So on the larger diameter wheels, where we can, we absolutely try to reuse the core. So I would say anything from 350 millimeters and up, we try to reuse the core material.
Interesting. All right, so it seems like we've gone through all of the questions. So it seems like the task is clear. And the only thing that I would like to finish off with some general advice on managing your own company. So where you are now, that's where our students want to be in a few years. A good portion of them are MBA or EMBA students. All of them are at business schools. And I assume at least half of them, if not more, want to have their own business at some point. So what would be your advice for future business owners? Or maybe if you could go back in time, would you do anything differently? Like what should they focus on to be successful business owners like yourself in a few years' time?
Well, obviously they're doing step one, which is education, but step two really is networking. Networking and learning from others is extremely important, and others' life experiences. That's why, when I came into this and I started learning and everything, and I got to a certain point with international sales where now I mentor small businesses and business owners that are just now getting into selling internationally. So, networking, sharing best practices, that's always very important. Being focused, having a plan, executing that plan, and not being afraid to fail. In business, you're going to have failures, and you just have to get up, dust yourself off, and move on from that. If I got upset over every bad wheel I ever made or designed, I, probably wouldn't be doing this. But from every failure comes, obviously more knowledge. So don't be afraid to keep trying. Don't be afraid to reach above where you think you can get to, and don't be afraid to ask. That's the biggest, issue that I see with people today is they're afraid to ask. Whether it's simple questions because they don't want to, they don't want to look dumb or anything like that. I always live by the moniker, what's the worst case scenario if you ask? Yeah. If you ask a question and the answer is yes or no, the worst answer you're going to get is no. But you're not going to know until you ask. If you ask questions and somebody, looks down upon you, well, that's their fault, because not everybody knows everything about every industry or everything. So I always ask, and I always work with, resources. If I have a friend or I know of somebody that, let's say, is an accounting genius, I'll reach out to that person and say, I need your assistance with this, because I'm not an accounting genius. I'm a diamond wheel guy. I make diamond wheels. That's my industry. That's what I do. But don't be afraid to reach out to other resources, because when you're a business owner, you don't have to know everything and be the best at everything. You have to be at the best at what your industry is. And that's what you should strive to be. And all the other stuff that's business related, you get people to help you with that, whether it's friends, whether it's people you hire, but make sure they're good. And that's really the only advice I can give you. I am successful at what I do because I have a good team, not only a good team of employees and workers here, but a good team of resources outside of here. So, my accountant doesn't work inside here. My accountant works outside. It's a firm. I reach out to them. Same thing. I have an international attorney that specializes just in international sales and agreements and everything. You have to have these resources to be successful. Doesn't mean you have to be an attorney to figure out an agreement. You just have to have a good attorney that you can reach out to, or a friend that's a good attorney, which is what mine is. He's a friend. So he says, oh, let me look at that agreement and make some changes for you. So those are my suggestions or my comments. Like I said, education and experience, internships like you're doing are invaluable. And then networking. I cannot stress enough how much networking helps you learn.
Yeah, not what you know, but it's about whom you know. Right?
Exactly. I would not even be a part of this project if it was not for networking.
Yeah.
Because, a person that sits on a committee with me works with this program and has for years. And this is why I'm here in front of you today, is because of networking. Because, I try to be as active as I can, but I can't find everything that everybody's doing all over the state of North Carolina. It's still a pretty big state. Yeah. But I know people and they know people. And so they were able to get me in contact with the right people to be a part of this project. So networking is key. Key.
So I got to ask this. They say that business owners sleep like babies. So they wake up every 2 hours, cry a little bit, and then go back to sleep because it's a very stressful job. Any regrets that you own a business instead of just have a nice and comfortable job from 8 till 5 and you don't worry about anything else?
No. I love the challenge. I'm a type A personality in that I like to lead and be in control, so to speak. I'm not a control freak because my employees will tell you I'm not a micromanager. If I hire you to do a job, you do that job, and you're pretty much, as long as you get the job accomplished, I'm pretty much hands off. But I am the kind of person that's very with my competitors and in life. I'm the one that's screaming at the TV if it's the football match or something that's going on and my team's losing. But, you have to have that desire to want to do it. And it's not for everybody, but it's very fulfilling to me. I love doing it. They always say, if you're a business owner, you make your own hours. That's true. I can work 24 hours a day, and I have never worked less than 50 hours a week in what I do. But I get the enjoyment of having a very successful company. I get the enjoyment of the competitiveness with my competitors. I get the enjoyment with working with great people all around the country and around the world. And that's what I enjoy. And if you enjoy it and that's what you want to do, the fact that you have the stresses and everything, they come and go.
Yeah.
But when you get that client, or you get that sale, or you get that product to work the way you want it to, and you really showcase what you're able to do, it's the best feeling in the world. So, I wouldn't trade this in for an 8 to 5 because that's just not my personality.
Yeah. Nothing wrong with 8 to 5, but it's a whole different level and much more interesting life, I assume, when you actually lead a team and, have your own company. Riskier, but probably more rewarding in many ways.
Yep.
All right. Well, thank you so much. They're informative. So let's see what the students will bring. So it will probably be a little quiet for a few weeks as the students are sort of doing their research. There will be occasional questions, but then there will be more questions towards the end. And let's hope that the students will bring not only good ideas, but potentially some new business needs as well.
Sounds good. Look forward to it.
All right. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. And then those who are watching. So if you have any additional questions that you couldn't ask, just send the email. We will forward them to the company. All right. Bye-bye.